It's well known that the book of Isaiah can be a complicated read that takes many people a lot of study in order to understand. Though, the prophet Nephi informs us that this is not unique to our day. His own people, only 100 years after Isaiah's time, had a hard time understanding his words as well. Nephi said, "Isaiah spake many things which were hard for many of my people to understand, for they know not concerning the manner of prophesying among the Jews." But here are a few things that will assist you in better understanding this incredibly important prophet. And feel free to come back to this video in order to focus on topics one at a time. In a lengthy portion of 2nd Nephi, the prophet Nephi declared that he would write more of the words of Isaiah, for my soul delighteth in his words. One of the stumbling blocks that prevented many Nephites from understanding Isaiah also included a knowledge of the geography of the ancient Near East. Nephi could explain the meanings to his people, he said, because I know concerning the regions round about, and I have made mention unto my children concerning the judgments of God. As such, as observed by John Hilton III, it is clear from Nephi's words that understanding both the regions round about, the geography, and judgments of God, a possible reference to then contemporary history, are essential to understanding Isaiah. Indeed, many of the Isaiah passages quoted by Nephi are describing Israel in close connection with its neighbors, including Syria, Assyria, and Babylon. As such, it is useful to note how these prophecies describe the ancient history and geography of the Near East in order to appreciate these chapters more fully. Many of the Isaiah passages cited by Nephi deal extensively with the punishments of the northern kingdom Israel. One such prophecy is beautifully told through a song of my beloved touching his vineyard. This prophecy, like all of Isaiah's writings, is written in poetic form, employing parallelism, symbolism, and other key Hebrew features meant to help readers understand what is happening in the text. According to this song, Israel is described as a vineyard in a very fruitful hill, which the Lord took great measures to protect. He fenced it, and gathered out the stones thereof, and planted it with the choicest vine, and built a tower in the midst of it, and also made a winepress therein. In other words, Israel was given the promised land, enjoyed the protection of the Lord, and were a covenant people under his care. However, they did not hold up to this covenant, for when the Lord looked that it should bring forth grapes, it brought forth wild grapes. Because Israel had sinned and become corrupt, the Lord then promised to tear down the vineyard's walls. That is, he would remove his protection from his people. Other prophetic judgments against Israel are centered on the sin of pride. For example, those who sought to get wealthy at the expense of the poor would be made poor, and the arrogant would be humbled when these things came upon them. Removing the Lord's protection would open Israel to many new threats, especially through invasions from foreign enemies. The biggest threat that both the northern and southern kingdoms would have been aware of would be the ever-expanding Neo-Assyrian Empire. This empire would soon grow to become the largest empire the world had ever seen up to this point in time. And the cruelty of the Assyrians was well known among all Near Eastern cultures. Assyria, dominating all of Israel's northern borders, would be used as a tool in the hands of the Lord to punish Israel. Like we read in the Book of Mormon, it is by the wicked that the wicked are punished. In a lengthy prophecy against Israel, the Lord promised that the destruction would be so complete that they would not be able to rebuild. Ultimately, these prophecies would be fulfilled in 722 BC, when Assyria scattered the 10 tribes and repopulated the land. One key event that is prominent behind two of the chapters Nephi quotes is the Syro-Ephraimite War between 735 and 732 BC. Fearful of Assyria's growing power, the small countries of Syria and the northern kingdom of Israel made an alliance, or a confederacy, so that they could push Assyria back when they inevitably expanded south. Even with Israel's help, however, Syria did not have the manpower to prevent an Assyrian invasion. As such, these two nations sought to get the kingdom of Judah to join their alliance. When Ahaz, the king of Judah, refused, Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up toward Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it. In so doing, they wanted to replace Ahaz with a puppet king who would join them in their war against Assyria. Thus, these two armies attacking Judah would have been a great concern for Ahaz. Throughout 2nd Nephi chapters 17 and 18, Isaiah is reassuring Ahaz that the Syro-Assyrian conflict would fail, providing 3 signs by which Ahaz would know that the Lord would deliver Judah, defeat the Syrian and Ephraimite armies, and establish the Messiah through David's lineage, just as he had previously promised. However, still doubting that the Lord would defend Israel, Ahaz asked Assyria for help in defeating these two northern invaders, ending the war in 732 BC, but ultimately making Judah a vassal kingdom to the Assyrian Empire. This would bring disastrous results during the reign of Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, just as Isaiah had prophesied. Even though up to this point Assyria had been the tool which the Lord used to punish Israel, Isaiah makes it clear that Assyria was by no means righteous. In fact, Assyria is described as being just as prideful as Israel, for which they too would be punished. This punishment would come in the form of destruction at the hand of the Babylonian Empire in 612 BC, thereby inheriting many of the lands formerly held by Assyria. This would include the kingdom of Judah. Babylon would ultimately be the nation responsible for scattering the southern kingdom of Judah for its pride, just as Assyria had scattered the northern kingdom. However, many of Isaiah's prophecies about the Babylonian Empire, which was still under Assyrian control at the time, also warned that because of Babylon's pride, they would be conquered by the Medes. The Medes, located even further east of Babylon, would be one of the founding peoples of the Persian Empire, which would destroy the Neo-Babylonian Empire in 539 BC, allowing Israelites to return to their homeland, as described in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah. Much of the historical context behind these prophecies seemed to paint a grim picture, as repeated armies from the north are attacking Israel, and empire after empire rises and falls. However, throughout these passages, Isaiah also prophesies of marvelous and joyful things that would have caused Nephi and his audience to rejoice in the Lord. For example, while repeated prophecies of the scattering of Israel are offered, they are typically followed by promises of the gathering of Israel as well. In fact, the promised blessings of a restoration are not just applicable to Israel, but to all nations. The Lord renders not only judgment for the whole earth, but also restoration. This leads to the many prophecies of all God's children accepting the gospel and serving him. For example, Isaiah saw, "When the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, then all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord." These are the conditions we are blessed to have begun to see in our day, that will eventually usher in a millennial peace throughout the entire world. Additionally, Israel is promised that they will once again enjoy the presence of the Lord. After having been washed clean of their sins, the Lord will create upon every dwelling place of Mount Zion, and upon her assemblies, a cloud and smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night, just as he had when Israel journeyed with Moses in the wilderness. These scriptures were also important for the Nephites in other ways. In each prophecy of destruction, pride is the underlying sin that led to the destructions. As such, it is little surprise how Nephite prophets continually warned the people against pride. Nor is it surprising that Isaiah was one of the most common set of scriptures they would use to do so. Ultimately, the book of Isaiah was influential among Nephite prophets for their views on the restoration of Israel and the blessings promised to them in the last days. Even as Isaiah prophesied in ways that would be beneficial to his own immediate audience, he was able to use historical events to share a vision of the future day of the Lord, inspiring readers for millennia.